Okay, there we go. Sorry, there's like it must
I
have
was like,
started,
you
but there was some kind of
froze.
lag. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, welcome back to the Mentally Fit Athlete. Um, yeah, thanks for joining us. This is a very new podcast that we're starting. I'm Dr. Jason Von Steeds. My colleague is Lydia Garcia.
Hi
And
there.
hey, and um, today we're going to be answering questions uh, that were asked in a sports psychology class. So there's a sports psychology high school class that I was lucky enough to be invited to talk to students, talk to them about just any of their sports psychology questions. And they had some really great, really interesting questions. So we're gonna start going through those. Lydia, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty
When
good.
when did you get to talk with this class?
A couple weeks ago, it was a couple weeks ago. It would have had to have been pretty early in their semester. Now that I'm thinking about it, um, yeah, so maybe this was kind of kicking off their semester. Let's talk to a guy who does this. Let's see what he has to say, and then they must like go more into their textbook after that. So that was fun. That was a lot of fun to do that. They had some really great questions, and it was fun to talk to. It was fun to hear these questions from actual high school athletes because
Yeah.
they're in it, they're competing, they have all the pressures of high school athletes, like friends, homework, family life. So it's a lot of fun to just get to answer their questions. Um, that they're bringing to the table
Yeah.
versus maybe someone referring them in a crisis. They got to ask whatever was on their mind um, in a safe, maybe a little bit more fun environment, a little bit less serious.
Yeah.
So that was really
And
nice.
some of the things, it looks like some of the questions too, things that just apply to them a lot more, things that they actually want to know and that they're really curious about versus like the things that we think they're going to want to know. So,
Right,
you
right,
know,
exactly.
things that like their teacher wants them to learn because that's what they're going to be tested on. It's more the stuff that they are actually curious about when it comes to their own performance or their own future as students, as athletes, as just people experiencing sport as a lifestyle. So I'm excited.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's their question versus their parents' question or their teacher's
Yeah.
question. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me read the first one. Question one from one of the students. How does mentality differ between team sports and individual sports? Oh, we got a two-parter here. How is sports psychology tailored to fit these differences? All right, great question. Do you have any thoughts to start us off with?
Yeah, I do. So team sports versus individual sports, obviously on a team, when we're on a team, we are each individuals bringing our own stuff kind of to the field or to the game. And but in doing so, maybe someone's having an off day, someone has a lot of homework, someone didn't sleep so well the night before, something like that. Um, there could be anything going on for them, but you have other people on the team to sort of pick up the slack in a way when somebody might need a little bit more of a break. And when you're an individual, sometimes it can feel that the focus is entirely on that one person. And so it requires a little bit more um, self discipline, a little more mental resilience, a little more self motivation, because that athlete by themselves is sort of responsible for the success or the failure of that performance. And that sounds like a lot of pressure, right? It's not
Sure.
then like dispersed among among the rest of the team. So I think that that's kind of a place where it starts, right? Where not only are you with the team, not only are you bringing in a lot of different personalities and things like that, but the character traits would require some improvements in communication, possibly, or just very clear communication among the teammates, among the coaching staff. Um, whereas the athlete that's an individual would probably just need to be more in direct communication with maybe their coach, clear communication with like an athletic trainer or a physical therapist about what's going on in their body, their sports psychologist with what's going on in their mind. Um, and I think that's just where it begins. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then certain skills are going to be important no matter what. Like you pointed out, the importance of communication with your coach. So communication is always important. Focus is always important. But if you're on a team sport, then communicating with your coach and with your teammates is going to be really important. Teamwork, of course, is going to be really important. When you're on a team, um, there might be 10 other players on the field with you. There might be 8 other players on the field with you, however many, depending on the sport. And you can only control your behavior. You can't control anybody else's. So your teammates are going to do all kinds of stuff that you think, you know, you would have done differently and better. Or maybe you're just, caught off guard and you need to adapt to whatever it is that they did. You thought they're going to go left and they're going right, and you need to be able to adapt accordingly. So that adaptability is going to be really important, and letting go of control. Um, and communicating on the field could be really important, whether that's verbally communicating or communicating with your body language, or you I can imagine using some kind of hand gesture or something like that.
Yeah.
So communication is going to be really really important with a team sport, um, and the pressures can be very different. There is research showing that sprinters in track and field sprinters can have more of a tendency to have anxiety and depression. Um, I would bet that it's because they are, doing it on their own. Of course, they have a team, they have coaches, they usually have a team that they're training with. But at the same time, if you are, a softball player and you are, waiting for your turn at bat, you have your team right there cheering for you, supporting you, and if you strike out, there's two other chances. The team has two other chances, um, or they can suffer two more strikeouts before the inning's over. Um, Whereas if you're a sprinter, if you if
Well,
you
if you
pull a
false start,
muscle, if you fall
yeah,
short,
if you false start and you get eliminated, that's it. You're not
yeah,
sprinting.
that's
Yeah.
it. So it's all on you. And there's pros and cons to that, because some athletes, lots of athletes do like to uh, be able to compete more for themselves, and not in a bad way, but just you want to get that game time. And if you're a sprinter, then you don't have to wait for the coach to put you in necessarily. You have the 100 and the 200 if those are events you run, and it's going to be a lot more expected that you do get that race time, that time on the track. Whereas if you're a team sport athlete, you may or may not get to compete that day. So there's definitely pros and cons. Um, and a lot of sports where we think of them as individual sports can be really team oriented in a way. You're a distance runner, or a middle distance runner.
Middle
A lot of
distance.
Yeah, a lot of distance runners, a lot of cross country runners, they just enjoy running with their friends. They like being in that pack. They like having a thing to do. Um, and yeah, some of them really care about winning, some of them don't. It's not that big of an issue. Uh, Whereas, maybe in another sport, baseball, softball, if you keep having L's on your record, that's gonna, it makes people feel bad. And the same thing with cross country, but it's there could be a lot less pressure, and it could just be more about the fun of the activity. But what's your experience like in a sport like running?
Yeah. So, I mean, my experience as an individual athlete in, middle distance track running, cross country, some road racing. Well, I guess a lot more road racing these days. Um, Depending on the distance, yes, the things are all kind of on you. Yes, like as the individual athlete, it's up to you to show up to practice and to put in the work that you have to put in. So things have to be very intrinsically motivated. Um, Goal setting has to be very specific, but also flexible enough um, to kind of be able to absorb any sort of setbacks, whether it's an injury or a test that you need to stay up late to study for, or something like that. Or just, for us adults, a job getting in the way of your training program, just whatever it's going to be. Um, but in those distance races, you can do them kind of for fun and for the enjoyment, or that's what gets people in, especially in like those high school, middle school, high school years when they're starting cross country. Maybe it's a kid who needs some social interaction with others, but in a less competitive environment where they can just enjoy being there. And then as they develop in that sport, they start to realize some of the tactics and some of the strategy inside of the racing. So you start to get to know yourself really, really well in terms of like, if I sprint right out of the gate when I just start this race, then I'm exhausted by the time I'm 400 meters in. And so, but I've still got 2 miles to go. Oh my God, right. You start to get to know where are your limits, and how can you use your strengths within those races to get you to where you need to be. With a race like my specialty was 800 meters, so that's a half mile, 2 laps on the track, and there was very specific strategy that would go into racing the 800 meters. um, and I had my strategy just down, but I also kind of had kind of like some wiggle room for like if things didn't go exactly the way that it should go. Because while you're an individual on the track, you're running against a bunch of other individuals who also have their own individual plans, and they're not thinking about what you want to be doing. They're thinking about what they want to be doing and moving themselves through their strategies along that along your in your way most of the time. Um, so being able to be adaptable is also something that comes with being an individual athlete. Um, I'd also say that the differences between kind of tailoring sports psychology for a group versus tailoring it for like for a team versus tailoring it for an individual is that um, sometimes something that would be great for a team is a strategy like conflict resolution. What about when one person is getting more playing time than the other person and there's like resentment being built, or lots of other things that different team dynamics that could pop up when conflicts kind of inevitably arise. You want to have strategies for your teammates to be able to um, resolve those things so that they can then be able to meet the marks that you actually want to get, right? The ultimate goal of winning that game or going to CIF or whatever else is next. The conflict resolution that might come inside of an individual is just their own ability to kind of maybe move forward from a setback, or maybe anxiety or perfectionism that might be coming kind of more like intrusive thoughts in a way that might be plaguing that individual, and being able to find some of the ways that they are themselves quieting some of those voices or readjusting in the ways that need to be readjusted.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I I competed in weightlifting. You were talking about your experience in running. I was also I sprinted in high school and in community college. Then after that, I went into weightlifting, and um, weightlifting people often consider an individual sport. Like in sprinting, they consider that individual athletes. But being a good training partner is really important in weightlifting, in track too, and if you're a sprinter too. But with weightlifting, you have the bar, the barbell. We have to load, unload weight. You got to do it quickly. You got to work together. You do support your teammates as they're training. And on game day, on competition day, you will be competing as a team, but then also against your teammate. And I think there's something about being a good training partner that does teach people to be a good team player, to communicate, to support each other, to stay focused, things like that. And conflicts will come up here and there, and then it is important to resolve those conflicts so that you can both keep training together, keep doing your best. And then the great thing about an individual sport like track or like weightlifting is you're both going to be competing on the day of the meet, or the tournament. So you train together, you compete together, and then whatever happens happens. You both do your best, and then in a team sport, there is the issue of not getting game time, or needing to figure out what your role is on the team. And for a lot of people, your role will be to do your best in practice, and support the players who get to play on game day by giving them a good workout in practice. Then
Mhm.
that's your role, and everybody has a role. Um, so yeah, so there are different challenges for team sports and for individual sports, and they might not look exactly how people are thinking, because if you're an individual sport, you still got to be a good training partner, and if you're in a
Yeah.
team sport, um, your team might go to victory, and that's great, and you might need to um, perform a role that you really didn't want to perform. Maybe you wanted to be the guy to win the touchdown, and you're the guy who does his best in practice so that defense can can get their reps in. Um, so yeah,
Kind of
and
on
just
that training partner piece, right? Like, especially, I think that that's especially important for individual sports where it's really, if I think about my own experience as a middle distance runner, it would be impossible to get faster just by myself because you've got, well, it wouldn't be impossible. It would just be much harder to get those marginal gains of speed alone. Um, and when you have a really good training partner, people work in two ways where you're either the one who's kind of striving, like you're the one who's trying to like catch the person in front of you, or you're the one who's trying to stay in front. And no matter which role you play, both athletes usually have a huge benefit just in like wanting to like either pursue that greatness or stay on top, right? And a strategy that coaches used to use, that my coaches on the track used to use, would be like taking turns leading. And so even if the person was slower on paper than the other athlete, right? When you have that responsibility of leading that rep, all of a sudden your confidence just like skyrockets. And that's where like these big shifts in like fitness start to happen, and because like they're starting in your mind more than they're even starting in your body, or it was already there in your body, but now you have this, oh, I'm in the front, I'm leading, I'm going to have the best rep of my life, and suddenly like I'm responsible for all these people behind me and leading them out, right? So having those roles as individual athletes, but also coming together in a team format is, I think, really important for progress in sport. And then, have you ever noticed in like a track meet, um, everyone is doing their individual thing, right? Everyone has you're waiting for your race on the track. Throws are happening over there in the field. You've got jumps going on, you've got all kinds of things happening. And it only takes, everyone's trying to score points to like, everything is still points based on in track and field. Um, and when you're down or when things just aren't really going so well, all it takes is that one person to kind of win that race, win that heat, or make a big jump, or, throw the javelin really far or something for it to like completely shift the momentum. And you hear that, you see that, you're like, oh, so and so Molly just did a really great jump over there.
Yeah, good job,
So
Molly.
it gets everybody kind of like hyped, and
Yeah,
then whatever happens on the track ends up starting to shift, and like people start running faster, people start getting um our favorite show, the Cobra Kai, has a really
yeah.
great montage of like that happening in their
Mhm.
tournament, the Saikai Taikai, where like they're
Yeah,
Cobra Kai, I mean, not the Cobra Kais, the Miyagi Dos are kind of down a little bit, but then it just takes that one person to get that good strike in on the opponent, right? And then it shifts the whole momentum and they start winning. Sorry to ruin the show for everyone, but
yeah.
um, they've got all those. It really is just like that
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
So
So if
that's
you had,
that intersection of team and individual.
yeah, and then if you're at a track meet and you want to get some momentum, yeah, karate chop someone or
Yeah,
do a
karate
nice
chops.
side kick. Yeah, then
Sweep the
get
leg.
yeah, sweep the leg, get that momentum going. Yeah, no, exactly. And I have done team building workshops for team sports and individual sports. I've done them for track teams, and you might think like, oh, a track team, that's a huge team, lots of people, lots of different events. They don't necessarily work together except for like the 4x4 or 4x1. So what would be the point of a team building session? But it is really important, and one athlete gaining momentum can really turn the tide. Athletes cheering on their teammates can be really helpful. Communication, all that stuff. And when I've done a team building session with a track team, one of the concrete takeaways can be as simple as people learning each other's names. They don't even know each other's names oftentimes. If you're a shot putter and then someone's a distance runner, you're barely going to see that person. You don't work out together, and it's going to be really hard to remember their names. But I remember at the end of the workshop, my intention wasn't really for them to learn each other's names, or it was, but that wasn't the main point. But that was something that the athletes kept talking about. Like, oh, now we know each other's names. Now we can actually cheer for each other instead
Yeah.
of saying "Go team." Now
Yeah.
we know each other and we can talk to each other. So a team dynamic is really important, even in something that people consider an individual sport.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. It builds that community and that cohesion, just that, yeah. I really like that. It's making me think about a lot of things actually.
Yeah, nice, nice. And then now we are at about 24 minutes. So I I think it is time to start wrapping up. But
Yeah.
any last words right now, or
Final thoughts. No, I think that I think that it's interesting how we can find team dynamics within individual sports, and how, in a big way, individual performance does rely on having a team. In my opinion, maybe in yours also, whether it's the training partners that you have, the coaches that you have, the the mental health professionals who surround that athlete, all of those people are are there to support the individual's success, and they're all part of the team, right? It would be very hard to achieve some of the great things that individual athletes have done entirely on their own. You know, I even think about like road cycling. You only have one yellow jersey and one Tour de France winner,
Mm,
but there were there's an entire team that equally would like to have that yellow jersey, but they all play roles inside of that course's race, where most of the time they're just pulling the one strongest rider to victory, right? So they've got domestiques who were just basically just riding to break the wind and like to make it easier for their star person, I guess.
sure.
Most juiced up athlete. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. To make it a little bit easier for that athlete to finish that, what is it, 22 stages. It's insane. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great point. Yeah, we all have a role to play. We all have our own reason why. Like, why are we doing this? It's important to be in touch with that, and maybe we'll talk more about that when we answer more of these questions. I don't want to
Yeah.
keep us going for too long. I'll keep it short and easy to digest. But in future episodes, we'll keep talking about. We'll keep answering these questions from the high school student athletes. And Lydia, do you want to tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, thanks so much. My name's Lydia Garcia. I'm an associate clinical social worker. You could find me at lydiagarcia.net or on Instagram at liddy.g.
All right, yeah. I'm Dr. Jason Von Steets. My website is drjasonvonsteets.com. You can find me on Instagram at CBT Sports Psych. And thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon. Hope you join
Thanks for
us again.
joining.
All right.
Bye.